Hello everyone, the release of Genshin's 7th region, Nod-Krai, is finally here, and Aino will be the free 4-star character of the region, though she will be on banner in the second half of patch Luna 1 with Flynn's. Because she's a free 4-star, there isn't too much expectation for Aino to be a very good character meta-wise. Despite this, she's still looking like a relatively useful character that enables Nod-Krai specific mechanics for teams, while also being cheap to build. So in this guide, I'll be explaining how Aino works, the best ways to build her potential best teams, and analyzing her place in the meta in terms of overall strength and pull value. Pretty much everything you need to know with simple and practical explanations while also giving more detailed analysis that is backed by TC. Before delving into the character kit, it is important to first understand the major Nod-Krai team building mechanic called Moonsign. Your party will have a different Moonsign depending on the number of Nod-Krai characters you have on the team. One Nod-Krai character means the party has a nascent Gleam Moonsign, and at least two Nod-Krai characters means the party has an ascendant Gleam Moonsign. The party's level of Moonsign determines and enables certain buffs for many Nod-Krai related things, including artifact sets, weapons, character talent abilities, and counters to enemy mechanics. For example, the 4-piece of the Nod-Krai DPS artifact set, Night of the Sky's Unveiling, gives crit rate depending on the party's Moonsign. With a nascent Moonsign, aka one Nod-Krai character in the party, the 4-piece gives 15% crit rate. With an ascendant Moonsign, aka at least two Nod-Krai characters in the party, the 4-piece gives 30% crit rate. In many cases, the full benefits unlock when the party has an ascendant Gleam Moonsign, thus incentivizing Nod-Krai related teams to have at least two Nod-Krai characters. To give further incentive for having Ascendant Gleam, parties with Ascendant Gleam can gain further buffs to lunar reaction damage. With at least two Nod-Krai characters in the party, when your non-Nod-Krai characters use their elemental skills or bursts, they will grant a team-wide buff to lunar reaction damage up to a max of 36%, and this buff scales off a stat depending on that character's element. For Pyro, Electro, and Cryo, it's based on attack. For Hydro, it's based on HP. For Geo, it's based on defense. And for Anemo and Dendro, it's based on elemental mastery. So for example, in the teams with Flynn's, Anefa, Yelan, and Sucrose are the non-Nod-Krai characters. When they use their skills or bursts, they will grant the team a lunar reaction damage buff based on the stat of their element. If Yelan has 30,000 HP, she gives 18% lunar reaction damage bonus. If Sucrose has 1000 EM, she gives 22.5%. If you add them together, you get over the max buff of 36%, so you get 36% lunar reaction damage bonus. Now if you have Aino on the team instead of Yelan, only Sucrose is able to enable this new buff, so you just get 22.5% lunar reaction damage bonus. Here are the total stats needed from the corresponding elements to reach the max team lunar reaction damage bonus. Unless you have a character like Nilou on the team who can reach 60,000 HP herself, in many scenarios you need two non-Nod-Krai characters in the party to get the max buff. But getting the max buff from this new Nod-Krai resonance isn't something you absolutely need. It's just a nice damage buff specifically for teams that deal lunar reaction damage and gives an incentive to play the Nod-Krai characters together with characters from other regions. Now, let's discuss Aino's actual kit. She is a 4-star Hydro Claymore user that ascends with Elemental Mastery, making her the first Hydro Claymore in the game after almost 5 years since Genshin's release. She doesn't enable any of the new lunar reactions, and she isn't going to deal much damage. Her main role in teams is to be an off-field Hydro support purely for utility. She exists mainly to apply Hydro, provide buffs with her weapons, artifacts, and constellations, and most importantly, counts as a Nod-Krai character for the party's Moonsign. By being a Nod-Krai character, she mainly helps to enable Ascendant Gleam for the party when paired with another Nod-Krai character, allowing the team to gain the full benefits of the Nod-Krai artifact sets, weapons, and character kit buffs of other Nod-Krai characters. Aino's skill targets a nearby enemy and grapples herself toward them. You can tap the skill to quickly dash towards an enemy, or hold it to aim the direction. The damage of this ability is pretty irrelevant since it doesn't scale with EM. Its main purpose is to apply Hydro and to generate 3 Hydro particles. Using Aino's burst places a robot ducky into the air, which periodically attacks enemies within its field, applying Hydro at a standard ICD. Normally, it will hit every 1.5 seconds, therefore applying Hydro every 3 seconds on a single enemy. But with Aino's A1 passive, when she's paired with at least one other Nod-Krai character, her burst gets enhanced. Its attacks will gain some AoE and will have a larger attack range. With the upgraded burst, it hits every 0.7 seconds, therefore applying Hydro every 2.1 seconds on a single enemy. In addition, with Aino's A4 passive, the damage of her burst will be increased by 50% of her elemental mastery, making it deal a little more damage but still not very significant. Lastly, Aino's exploration passive displays Nod-Krai resources on your map and allows you to customize the appearance of her burst. That's everything you need to know about Aino's base kit. In terms of talent leveling priority, if you leave her talents at level 1, there honestly won't be much of a difference in her performance as the talents themselves don't have EM scalings. And theoretically, in many teams, Aino only needs to be leveled to 20 out of 40 so her A1 passive is unlocked. She can do the majority of her support function just fine with very little investment. If you are planning to play her in a Nilou Bloom team, however, you'll want to level her to 90 because she'll be triggering blooms. As for her general gameplay as a support, all she does is press skill, press burst, then swap out. Very simple. As a 4-star character, Constellations can be important to their kit, so let's go over them. With C1, after Aino uses her skill or burst, she gives herself and the active character 80 EM for 15 seconds. With C2, when Aino is off field and her burst is active, when the active character hits an enemy, the burst will fire an additional Hydro attack scaling off of Aino's elemental mastery. This has a 5-second cooldown and importantly is another source of Hydro application. C3 increases her burst talent level by 3, C4 makes Aino's skill give an extra flat 10 energy, C5 increases her skill talent level by 3, and lastly with C6, using Aino's burst will buff the team's electric charged, Bloom, Lunar Charge, and Lunar Bloom reactions by 15% for 15 seconds, and if there are at least 2 Nod-Krai characters on the team, this buff is increased to a total of 35%. Overall, Aino does have some important constellations that she ideally wants to increase her supportive capabilities. C1 gives her an actual buff to her kit in the form of Elemental Mastery, which is good. The extra Hydro application from C2 helps Aino enable her team's reactions. In teams like Overvape, it can help with vape consistency, and in teams like Bloom and Hyper Bloom, the Hydro app is even more important for the Dendro cores. C4 helps reduce her ER requirements, and her C6 is a fairly strong damage buff for mainly Lunar Reaction teams such as Flinz's Lunar Charge teams. Next, here are the best builds for Aino. For weapons, she has 3 main claymore options. First, if you manage to pull Makhaira Aquamarine on a weapon banner, this weapon will be good, especially at high refinements because it buffs the party's attack based on Aino's elemental mastery. Second, Favonia's Greatsword will be one of her best support weapons because the extra clear particles generated can greatly help a team's energy requirements. Just make sure you build crit rate to proc it more consistently. And third is the patch 5.8 event weapon, Flame Forged Insight. After triggering Electrocharged, Bloom, Lunar Charged, or Lunar Bloom, this weapon pretty much gives a total of 285 EM and 24 flat energy, which greatly reduces Aino's energy requirements. This weapon will be the best choice for mainly Nilou Bloom teams, as in those teams, Aino building a lot of EM is more important because she will trigger blooms and create dendro cores. Now if you don't have any of the 3 weapons I mentioned, you can use the new Nod-Krai craftable claymore Master Key. It has an ER substat, and at R5 it gives 120 EM for 12 seconds after triggering a reaction. With at least 2 Nod-Krai characters on the team, the EM buff increases to 240. However, if you have Makhaira Aquamarine, Favonia's Greatsword, or Flame Forged Insight, I would highly recommend using those weapons instead of using your billets to craft Master Key. For artifact sets, one of her best options is the new Nod-Krai support set, Silken Moon Serenade. The 2-piece gives 20% ER, and the 4-piece increases the team's elemental mastery after dealing elemental damage based on the number of Nod-Krai characters on the team. With 1 Nod-Krai character, the 4-piece gives the team 60 EM. With at least 2 Nod-Krai characters, the set gives the team 120 EM. On top of that, the set increases the team's lunar reaction damage by 10% for each unique Nod-Krai artifact users on the team. So if Aino holds this set and a DPS on the team holds the Nod-Krai DPS set, the team gets 20% lunar reaction damage bonus. Now in some cases, another character on the team may want to use Silken Moon Serenade. For example, if Aino is paired with Anefa on the team, Anefa can use Silken Moon Serenade to take advantage of the 2-piece ER. Since the sets don't stack, Aino can use another support set instead. These options include 4-piece Noblesse for the team-wide attack percent buff after using burst, and 4-piece Instructor for the additional EM buff after triggering a reaction. For artifact main stats, in Nilou Bloom she wants full EM with EM and ER substats. In other teams, she can still run full EM main stats but can swap the Hourglass for energy recharge if needed, or the Circlet for crit rate for Favonia's Greatsword. She'll still want mainly EM and ER for substats, but you can also look for crit rate if you're using Favonia's Greatsword. For energy requirements, I recommend around 150% ER with C4 Aino and about 190% ER without C4. Remember that generally Aino isn't much of a damage dealer, so you can really focus more on ER substats, and some of her best weapon options gives her energy, helping her meet her ER requirements, so don't be afraid to build more energy recharge just to be safe. Finally, let's go over Aino's best team comps. For this section, I will be showing team DPS calcs from Theorycrafters, vomfee, and hyperwebster. Keep in mind to not directly compare the results with other TCers, as assumptions can differ between people, and for dendro reactions especially, calcs can differ greatly based on the assumptions used, so consume TC responsibly. Aino's main role is to apply off-field hydro to enable reactions, buff the team through weapons, artifacts, and constellations like C1 and C6, and count as a Nod-Krai character in the party to enable Ascended Gleam, which gives the team the full benefits of Nod-Krai weapons, artifact sets, and Nod-Krai character kits. For instance, C6 Aino is one of the best hydro supports for Flynn's on his release. With her C1 and C6, she is one of the few hydro supports who provides meaningful damage buffs for Flynn's while enabling a shorter rotation. Even though you don't need Aino specifically for Ascended Gleam if a Nepha is already on the team, Aino is still fine and at C6 performs similarly to a C0 Yelan and a burstless C0 Farina. If you don't have a Nepha, Aino will be necessary to use in Flynn's teams in version Luna 1 to have 2 Nod-Krai characters in the party for Ascended Gleam, which is an important requirement for Flynn's to deal good damage. For Nepha alternatives, you can use Fischl, Eon-san, or Sora instead. Aino can also be used as an off-field hydra for Nilou Bloom teams with Llama. Even though having Llama and Aino on the team means your Blooms can't crit anymore because the party has Ascended Gleam, so you get Lunar Bloom crit instead, having 2 Nod-Krai characters in the party does mean you get the full benefits of both Nod-Krai artifact sets while buffing Llama's hold skill damage, resulting in a still solid Nilou Bloom team. This logic also applies in Llama double Hydro Hyperbloom teams, trading the ability for your Hyperblooms to crit for Llama's personal damage. Lastly, Aino isn't just luck to supporting Nod-Krai characters. If she's paired with another Nod-Krai support, they can enable Ascended Gleam and provide those benefits for a non-Nod-Krai DPS. One of the best examples of this is an Arlecchino Overvape team with Aino and a Nepha. You get sufficient enough lunar charge uptime for a Nepha while also allowing Arlecchino to vapor attacks. Also, this team enables Arlecchino to use the new Nod-Krai DPS set, which can be a slight upgrade over 4-piece Whimsy, and based on pre-release calcs, with Aino and a Nepha, Arlecchino's Overvape teams look competitive with her best melt teams. To conclude this Aino guide, I wanted to share my analysis on her place in the meta in terms of overall strength and pull value. Aino mainly does 3 things for a team. She applies off-field hydro to enable reactions, buffs the team through weapons, artifacts, and constellations like C1 and C6, and most importantly, she counts as a Nod-Krai character in the party to enable Ascended Gleam for the full benefits of Nod-Krai weapons, artifact sets, and Nod-Krai character kits. With just a few Nod-Krai characters available at the start of the region, Aino being an accessible hydro Nod-Krai character makes her helpful for Nod-Krai team building, supporting other Nod-Krai characters like Flint and Llama, and also non-Nod-Krai characters like Arlecchino, being a solid option for these teams on release. Overall, however, Aino is still fitting for a free 4-star character of a region. Her kit itself isn't very strong. Her abilities practically don't deal any damage, only applying hydro, and she doesn't have any team buffs in her base kit unless you have constellations like C1 and C6, which many may not have if you don't pull a lot on her banners. Considering Yelan and Farina are similar in performance to a C6 Aino as the hydro support for Flynn's, even though Yelan and Farina's damage percent buffs are relatively useless for Flynn's, it kinda demonstrates some of Aino's shortcomings as a 4-star character meta-wise. As more Nod-Krai character options, especially limited 5-stars, are released to help you achieve Ascended Gleam for team building, you are likely to use them over Aino since they will likely provide more to a team. On top of that, it is very likely that a better Nod-Krai hydro support will be released in the future. With Columbina being rumored to be the premier hydro support of Nod-Krai, she may completely replace Aino in her role when she releases, making Aino just a temporary Nod-Krai support until then. But despite this, Aino is still free and available for everyone while being cheap to build, which ultimately gives her value to any account regardless of how the meta progresses in the future of Nod-Krai. And that's everything I wanted to cover about Aino. Of course, thank you to Theorycrafters, vomfee, and hyperwebster for all the calcs shown in this video. I hope this guide and analysis was helpful to you all and giving you a better understanding of everything related to Aino. Just clicking and watching the video helps the channel out immensely, and if you want to show even more support, consider liking or sharing the video, or click the subscribe button for more Genshin guide and analysis videos in the future. Leave any questions in the comments, and for all of you planning on wishing, I wish you all the best of luck on your Aino pools.